Now, there's been more worrying news about the state of health of the former president of Georgia, Mikhail Saakashvili. His relatives have told the media that he collapsed in the prison wing of the Tbilisi hospital where he's being detained. Mr. Saakashvili was jailed upon his return to Georgia in 2021 after being accused of illegally entering the country, in addition to previous charges of abusing his authority as president. You may remember that 2 decades ago he led Georgia's Rose Revolution. In the early years of his presidency were hailed by many as a model for reform in post-Soviet countries. Mr. Saakashvili has dual nationality, also held office in Ukraine as governor of the Odessa province. Well, on the line is the former president's son, Eduard Saakashvili. Thanks so much for joining us. But what is the latest news you have on how your father is doing?
Thank you so much for having me. What I have is the latest news is what you mentioned, basically, that he collapsed yesterday and he was kind of losing consciousness, and then the hospital confirmed that something like that indeed happened. And of course, it's not the first time, because what's been happening for the past year or so is that his health has just been declining, sometimes really quickly, sometimes kind of stabilizing, but always in the same direction. And thankfully, like about almost a year ago, the government was then finally forced to transfer him to this hospital that he's currently in. And at the time, we thought, okay, maybe then something will be fixed. But really, it hasn't been, and his health has only gotten worse since then. Where to the point where now even the hospital that he's in, and even the government admits that his life is in danger. That if things keep going the way they are, it's going to lead to a very, very, very bad outcome at the least. But that they're admitting it, but they're not doing anything about it, and they're just saying, well, it's his own fault or whatever. Even though he's not on hunger strike, and it's very clear that he's very interested in staying alive.
And do the doctors at the hospital where he is know what the root cause is of his deteriorating health?
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, the core of the problem, is that they don't seem to be able to really diagnose it properly. What they come out with is basically a description of his state. They'll say, well, he is like losing muscle mass, he is extremely fatigued, losing hair, whatever. But they're not able to get to the root cause. And that's why, as a family, we've been calling for a long time. And not just the family, I mean, the Georgian ombudsman, public defender, and recently the 27 EU countries, or basically pretty much every EU member state, came out with a joint statement calling for his release abroad so he could be treated at a kind of a better hospital that has more resources to be able to deal with such a difficult situation. The Polish government has expressed readiness from the very beginning of this to take him and take that upon themselves to do that type of care. So now it's just a matter of a political decision by the Georgian government to say, okay, we don't want him to die in our custody. Let's do what everybody's telling us to do. But I don't know if they're going to do that, unfortunately.
Now,
It's
an
just
awful
not
lot
clear.
of supporters of your father believe that his incarceration is political. So what do you think the chances are that the government will agree to him going abroad?
I think it's really difficult to tell. What's very helpful is that there's just an increasing level of international consensus that this is just unacceptable to keep him in custody and basically his life like in more and more danger. I'm really fighting for his life. I mentioned the EU member states like Macron, Zelensky have all made statements. And so hopefully that creates a situation where at a certain point the Georgian government is going to say, okay, we're just getting damaged politically so much by keeping this going that we're going to make the decision. Legally speaking, I think one possible lever that will make this happen, and we have a lot of hope about this, but we'll see what happens, is the European Court of Human Rights, where our family recently sent a petition for like an emergency measure to call for this type of release or medical transfer abroad. And, it's not clear when that decision will come down, what the timeline is, but that's a possible way that this could be resolved. So I'm hopeful, but yeah, we just don't know.
Eduard Saakashvili, thank you so much for talking to us about the health of your father, the former president of Georgia, Mikhail Saakashvili.
You're listening to NewsDay from